Greetings, friends. This is Ruslan Belov, and today we will take a detailed look at the situation in Ukraine as of October 30th, 2025. It has been a very eventful day. Many important incidents occurred, so let's not waste time and get straight to the point. We begin with the massive strike that the Russian Federation carried out last night against Ukraine's critical infrastructure. The operation involved several hundred drones and dozens of missiles. Early this morning, various sources published a map showing the approximate flight paths of Russian missiles and drones. It shows that the attack truly covered the entire country, from Lviv Oblast in the west to the front line in the areas of Pokrovsk and Kramatorsk. What makes this strike distinctive is that Russia did not act selectively. Instead, it hit almost the entire territory of Ukraine. Judging by the trajectories and recorded points of impact, the strikes targeted a number of energy facilities. In particular, there were reports of explosions and impacts near Dobrotvir, where a thermal power plant is located, as well as against the Burshtyn, Kalush, and Ladizin power plants. All this indicates that the Russian side continues a deliberate effort to disable Ukraine's energy system. The apparent goal of these actions is to force Kiev to accept Moscow's terms and to hasten an end to the conflict, possibly as soon as the winter period. It is noteworthy that the attack coincided with the publication of a new peace plan proposed by European politicians. The document contains 12 key points that merit close attention. It states that a ceasefire should begin within 24 hours after the parties give their consent. It then calls for freezing the current line of contact and immediately launching monitoring under US leadership. Ukraine and Russia are to sign a non-aggression pact, and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is to be temporarily transferred to a third party, with subsequent return to Kiev. The document also provides for the lifting of symbolic sanctions against Russia and the formalization of a boundary that takes into account Russian administration of the territories it controls. Ukraine is promised international security guarantees. An important point calls for strengthening mutual understanding and respect for linguistic, cultural, and religious diversity. In addition, the parties are to begin negotiations on the administration of territories controlled by Russia, and sanctions are to be lifted gradually as the plan is implemented. The conclusion notes that Ukraine and Russia will agree on compensation, and the West will unfreeze Russian assets. In essence, this document differs little from previous initiatives, but it has one nuance. It is written in a softer, more diplomatic tone. Viewed in the context of European behavior, it is clear that a bargaining process is beginning. This is especially evident in the point about mutual understanding of cultures and languages. For the first time, Kiev is showing a willingness to make concessions on issues related to the Russian language, Russian culture, and the activities of the Orthodox Church. It is possible that Ukraine will ease pressure on religious organizations and recognize Russian at least with some form of regional status. However, beyond this symbolic concession, the document offers nothing fundamentally new. Even the point about the borders of 1991 is formulated only indirectly, implying that their restoration would occur by diplomatic means. The Russian Federation, it would seem, will not accept this plan. At the beginning of the week, Zelensky warned that the document would be published, but Moscow is unlikely to engage with it. Most likely, there will not even be official comments from the Russian side. Now let's move to events along the line of contact. Over the past day, numerous reports have come in from different directions. We begin with the Zaporizhzhia sector. Pro-Russian sources today published new footage of reconnaissance operations. The video shows Russian units identifying positions of Ukrainian forces, after which Iskander missiles strike those positions. This is not the first such incident in recent days. Earlier, similar footage came from the area of the settlement of Vodolaske in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. At that time, it concerned the 67th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, which had deployed along the railway on the Pavlograd-Pokrovsk axis. After a temporary base with equipment was discovered, it too was hit by a missile strike. Thus, it can be concluded that the Ukrainian side is actively forming a second defensive line in this direction. It is partially built already, and Ukrainian units are now being positioned along it. The goal is obvious: to prevent a breakthrough after the potential fall of Huliai Pole and Pokrovsk, which, in the view of many experts, could occur in the coming months. Today, footage also arrived from the Vostok grouping of forces. It shows Russian units fighting for the settlement of Krasnohorsk, the last one remaining under Ukrainian control on the eastern bank of the Yanchel River. Judging by the video materials, the Russian army has established control over the entire eastern side of the river. In the final frames, Russian soldiers are seen raising the tricolor in the center of Krasnohorsk. Based on confirmed data, it can now be said that only 2 settlements remain under Ukrainian control along the Yanchel River, Rybin and Uspenivka. According to sources, Rybin could come under Russian control within 2 days, after which an advance toward Uspenivka, or the nearby settlement of Solodki, would begin. From that area, the Russian army would likely push south toward the strongpoints between Yablukivka and Novo-Uspenivska. Given the current situation, Ukrainian units are unlikely to hold their positions in the Uspenivka fortified area and will probably be forced to retreat. After it falls, the way to Huliaipol will be open, and the battle for the town itself will begin. Everything points to the possibility that within the next 2 to 3 months, Huliaipol could find itself in full encirclement, effectively in a cauldron. We then shift focus to the northwest, toward Pokrovsk, Mirnohrad, and the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. It is precisely there that developments are unfolding, which may determine the outcome of the campaign in this sector. As you can see, an enormous volume of data is coming from this direction today. Geolocations, markers, map adjustments, and reports from various sources. The map has changed significantly. Some information has already been confirmed, while some is still being clarified. But right now we can confidently state that the city of Mirnohrad, its northern and southern outskirts, the eastern part of Pokrovsk, as well as Rovna, Svitla, Ro, Ignativka, and Suky Yar have ended up in complete encirclement, with no chance for Ukrainian units to leave the area. Let's examine each of the latest adjustments in more detail to understand how events have unfolded across different parts of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. We start with the northeast. Today's materials justify a major recoloring of the map. This is how the area looked yesterday, on October 29th. Now, based on new videos, significant changes can be marked. The footage shows 4 Russian soldiers clearing a building. They move cautiously, without haste. There may be tripwires, drone attacks, or remaining Ukrainian troops abandoned by their command. Geolocation of this footage made it possible to pinpoint the exact filming location and confirm that Russian units have entrenched inside Mirnohrad, despite Kiev's claims to the contrary. Now let's move on to Pokrovsk itself. Yesterday, a remarkable video appeared, filmed near the settlement of Ro. It shows Russian drones striking Ukrainian positions across the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. One of the recorded episodes allowed for an update to the tactical map. The southern part of Pokrovsk is now marked as being under Russian control. Today, new geolocations from the same footage have surfaced. Around the 27th to 30th second, another strike is visible. This time north of the railway line, near Shossena and Dobropilska streets. These details made it possible to refine the map along and south of the railway. When comparing the images from October 29th and 30th, it becomes clear that the southern part of Pokrovsk has effectively come under full Russian control. However, it's important to understand that isolated pockets of Ukrainian resistance still remain within the city. There are quite a few of these, likely dozens. They are scattered, cut off from supply lines and communication, and completely lack the means for evacuation. These small groups are now surrounded, and according to reports, negotiations for surrender may already be underway, while others are being eliminated one by one. Thus, even though the southern part of the city is now colored on the map as cleared, in reality there are still localized areas of fighting. Yet these resistance pockets can no longer affect the overall operational picture. The only thing they can influence is the final number of Ukrainian soldiers who will end up captured. In essence, Russian forces are finishing the clearance of the territory south of the railway. Now let's turn our attention to the northwestern direction, which is also generating a large flow of reports. Neutral and pro-Russian cartographers note that Russian units are advancing further northwest and west along highways H32 and M30. There are indications that the first reconnaissance and sabotage groups have already entered the settlement of Hryshine. Increasing evidence suggests that the Ukrainian army is struggling to counter the new Russian tactics. Instead of deploying large assault columns, Russia is now using hundreds of small mobile teams, 2 soldiers in each. They move like a swarm, dispersing along the front, probing for weak points and slipping through gaps in the defense. Because the Ukrainian forces lack sufficient manpower to cover every section of the line, Russian units are exploiting these gaps to advance deeper. This same tactic was used during the assault on Pokrovsk. No frontal storming, only gradual infiltration and consolidation behind Ukrainian positions, bypassing remaining pockets of resistance without direct engagement. The most difficult situation today is unfolding near the settlement of Suky Yar. While in Pokrovsk and Minohrad, Ukrainian units are still trying to regroup, fall back closer to the city, and perhaps attempt a night breakout through the Rodinska or Hrishin corridors, the troops in Suky Yar no longer have such a chance. According to incoming reports, the 25th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces has been completely cut off there. Of course, not the entire brigade, but a significant portion of its personnel is trapped within a network of fortified positions north of Lysivka. These strongpoints, once considered key defensive nodes, have now become a trap. Retreat from them is impossible, open ground lies ahead, and all northern routes are already blocked. Most likely, these units will be the first to begin mass surrender, a development that could occur within the next 24 to 48 hours. Now we move to the northeast, to the area around Siversk. Here, the Russian army is actively advancing toward the southern outskirts of the city. Within a single day, the map has changed dramatically. Compared to its state on the evening of October 29th, Russian forces are clearly pushing toward the settlement of Sviato-Pokrovska. According to neutral cartographers, the Russian grouping is trying to bring under fire control a section of the T-0513 highway, which connects the southern and northern parts of the region. If successful, the city of Siversk will find itself in operational encirclement. And while it is too early to speak of a full cauldron, the preconditions are already visible. Once the Pokrovsk direction is fully cleared, Siversk will likely become the next major center of fighting. The pattern is familiar: gradual encirclement, isolation, blockade of supply lines, and then the elimination of remaining forces. Meanwhile, reports are also emerging of Russian advances near Lyman. The first verified footage has appeared online confirming the presence of Russian units on the southeastern outskirts of the city. The video shows buildings occupied by Russian troops, which later came under Ukrainian fire. The battles for Stavki, Novoselivka, and Drobyshev are still ongoing, but a new phase has already begun: the third battle for Lyman. That's all for now, my friends. Thank you for following the situation and supporting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and see you soon.